How long have we been on this rock? 5 weeks? 2 days? Help me to recollect.
Hey everyone, Mr. DVB here. So today I'm going to bring you all my review for The Lighthouse, which is directed by Robert Eggers and stars Robert Pattinson and Willem Dafoe. So this movie is set in the 1890s in New England, where two men arrive on an island with a lighthouse where they must operate it over the course of a few weeks, but as time goes on, they start to turn mad and eventually turn on each other. So this is one of my most anticipated movies for the remainder of the year. I typically don't see films like this. As a matter of fact, I've never seen an A24 film in theaters. And I also wasn't a huge fan of Hereditary, which is the only other A24 film I've seen besides this. Actually, never mind. I think Moonlight might be A24. But I typically don't see movies from this company. I just wasn't a fan of Hereditary. Wasn't a movie that's for me. I know a lot of critics love it, and that's fine. Just not for me. I thought it was kind of a slow, uninteresting movie. But I was looking forward to The Lighthouse. The trailers really intrigued me. It just had this kind of creepy, eerie vibe. I loved the setting of the movie, just this remote island where these two guys are looking after this lighthouse. You have two powerhouse actors behind this movie, Willem Dafoe being one of my favorite actors, and Robert Pattinson, who has certainly had a comeback in the past few years from his Twilight days. And yeah, I was looking forward to seeing this movie. And coming out of the film, I loved it. I think this is a great film. It's one of my favorites of this year. I'm also kind of glad that I gave myself like 2 weeks or something like that to kind of thinking about the movie because, my opinions on films do change a little bit over time. I might see a movie and then 2 weeks later I like it more, or the opposite, I might like it less. This movie, my thoughts are kind of the same as when I stepped out of it, but I'm glad I gave myself a little bit of time to kind of marinate on my thoughts again because this is a very interesting film. There's not many movies like this that you get, from a visual style, but also just from a story standpoint. From a visual style, this movie is shot in, I believe, 1.19 by 1 aspect ratio, which means it's basically a box. There's black bars on the side, like right here. So you only have this area of the screen, and that's something that you don't see much in movies, and I actually didn't have an issue with that. Watching this movie, it took me like 10 seconds, and I kind of forgot there's the black bars there because I was so drawn onto what was happening on screen. The cinematography in this movie is fantastic. This movie's shot in black and white, which I also think is a really cool visual style. Obviously, way less rare than in movies that are shot in the particular aspect ratio, but still, it was cool watching a movie that had this very particular look to it. And like I said, I got used to it right away. So the cinematography is obviously great, and so was the score. This movie sounded great. The movie had a very eerie, creepy score that really helped work with what was going on screen, and the sound design in general was just great. The sound of the lighthouse alarm, or not the alarm, whatever you call it, the foghorn, that was awesome. It was super loud and bassy, and I don't know, the sound design in this movie was just so well done. There's lots of creaks and that kind of stuff, seagulls and windows and floorboards creaking that you'll hear, just moving throughout the room, and it really just helps create this kind of eerie feel in the audience. On top of that, you have two great actors, like I said earlier, who are both fantastic in this movie. Both of these guys deserve Oscar nominations, in my opinion. Willem Dafoe was just absolutely batshit crazy in this movie. There are some times where it's a little bit hard to understand them and their dialogue, mainly because of the way they are speaking, like just the type of English they're using, late 1800s English, kind of Shakespearean almost. But I for the most part I knew what was going on, and I just thought their performances were great. This is a slower paced movie for sure. There's a lot of sequences where it's just these two guys talking, and for the first while, Robert Pattinson's character is a lot more quiet, kind of self-contained, not really speaking much. But once they start to really, collaborate with each other, that was when the movie just got excellent for me. But even before then, this movie was still fantastic to watch because like I said, it has this really eerie tone. Now, there are a few times where it does jump scares, dream sequences, which I find is very typical of A24 films. I've heard that a lot of their horror movies use like dream sequences a lot. And this whole movie could be a dream sequence. That's the thing that's really weird about this movie, is that you don't know when it ends what really it was all about. I still don't know exactly what this movie is about, and there are movies I've watched before where that's kind of the outcome, and I don't like that about the film, and I think it kind of takes away from the movie for me. For example, the film, I can't remember the name of it, but I'll put the title up here. It did that. And it didn't work for me in that film. I thought it kind of took away from the film's story overall, because I was intrigued and I was interested in what was going on, but then the movie just turns into a complete 180 and just becomes this confusing film that doesn't make any sense. This movie, for the entire time, it's confusing and weird and strange and disturbing. So it already has that feeling. So when it ends, I'm not kind of annoyed that it turned out that way. I do wish they kind of explained things a little bit better to the audience with the last 10 minutes. But I'm not angry about it because it has left me thinking, and there's a lot of different possibilities I've kind of created in my mind. I don't mind that. It kind of just depends on the film, really, for me. And in this film, it worked very, very well. I think the idea of the audience having to think about what it's all about works in this movie's case. Doesn't work in every movie's case. That's why I'm not a huge fan of when they go for that. But like I said, here, I do think it works. But yeah, overall, visually, this is just a great movie. Everything from a technical standpoint, visuals, and then just the sound design and everything works great here. The performances are fantastic. The pacing, it is a slower paced movie, but I was never bored by it. I was always still intrigued and drawn into what was going on the screen. Part of that has to just do with the visuals and the sound design and the acting and everything. So just a really well-crafted movie, eerie and suspenseful. It probably would be considered a horror film. I would consider it a horror film, although it's not full-out horror. You know, there's not like some creepy creature in this film. It's just two guys going mad on this island. The island could be enchanted. You know, there could be something in the light. There could be something messed up with this lighthouse. Or it could just be two guys going insane. Or it could be one guy going insane imagining another person. That's what I love about this movie. You really don't know what's going on. And it leaves you thinking for a while. So yeah, I'm going to give The Lighthouse a 9.5 out of 10. This could very easily turn into a 10 out of 10 on rewatch. Like I said, it's just the ending that left me a little bit disappointed in a slight way, just because I was still very, like, okay, I don't really understand what this is about exactly. I think movies can be confusing and still have the audience thinking afterwards, but also kind of give them a logical conclusion. For example, Blade Runner 2049 did that for me. That entire movie, you're confused and kind of trying to put the pieces of the puzzle together, and the movie does give you the answer at the end. And then on rewatch, you can kind of collect more of those pieces you didn't realize from before and build the full puzzle for yourself, not just see what the end picture's like. This movie, by the end of it, it's kind of just a bunch of scattered pieces still, and I feel like multiple rewatches would probably help me build that picture and decide what I want it to look like. Very weird analogy for me, and I'm turning into like a friggin' visual mind all of a sudden. I don't know. But yeah, very good film. Highly recommend checking it out if you guys like A24 films, and if you just want to experiment and try to see something different for once. Just a really excellent movie. And yeah, I'll see you guys next time.